Welcome to When One Thing Leads to Another, a podcast that takes you freewheeling down the great internet rabbit hole of trivia.
Each week we pick a starting point, and then who knows where all the twists, turns and tangents will take us. But we'll be sure to unearth a treasure trove of frivolous facts that will be as fascinating as they are, well, useless.
When One Thing Leads to Another is produced and presented by us, Helen and Bill Rich.
Our theme music is by Justin Mitchell.
This is episode 9, 50 years.
Okay, so this year, 2022, marks the 50th anniversary of some absolutely classic albums.
Oh, go on then.
Released in 1972, quick
Yeah.
maths. Okay, check these out. Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street.
Oh, yeah.
David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust.
Oh my gosh.
Lou Reed's Transformer.
Oh,
Bill Withers' Still Bill.
yeah.
Nick Drake's Pink Moon.
Oh,
Al Green's Let's Stay Together.
yeah.
And a favourite in this house, Neil Young's Harvest.
Yeah.
What a year for albums.
Oh, 50 years. Do you feel old?
I do feel old, yes I do. Now, you know I'm a sucker for reading the sleeve notes on records.
Yes, you are.
And I was reading the sleeve notes on Neil Young's Harvest.
Yeah.
And found out that his friend and collaborator, Jack Nicholson,
Yeah.
he played lap steel guitar and piano on a couple of tracks, and
Yeah.
he arranged some orchestration and produced 2 tracks. But years before, Jack Nicholson had worked alongside Phil Spector, no less, to create the famous Wall of Sound production method.
The Wall of Sound.
Yes. Now, he has been referred to as Phil Spector's sidekick, but delving deeper, he was far more than merely Spector's assistant. And he arranged River Deep, Mountain High by Ike and Tina Turner for a start. So I thought I would look into that, and I have discovered on that classic record, Ike doesn't appear at all on it.
Oh, really? He doesn't even play?
He's not even on it. His only contribution to that record was to make a deal with Spector that Spector could use Tina Turner to sing the track on the proviso that the song was credited to Ike and Tina Turner.
He wasn't a very nice man, was he? Bit of a bully. So he has his name on the record, but he didn't do anything.
He contributed nothing other than he took $20,000 for it, by the way.
Yeah, I bet he did.
Anyway, Spector had Tina sing it, and you know that Spector was famously a absolute perfectionist.
Yeah.
And I think
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, another way of putting
Psycho.
it. Yeah, he got Tina to sing it over so many times that she got hot in the singing booth, and she wrote in her memoirs later on that she had to lose some layers, and in the end she actually sang in her bra.
Oh,
which
I
apparently
can see her standing in the booth in a bra,
belting it out,
working it,
yeah, absolutely.
owning it,
and it raised a few eyebrows in the studio, as you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you know that the melody on River Deep, Mountain High
Do I love you, my almighty
is a combination of 3 unfinished songs by the 3 different songwriters?
Oh, that's interesting.
The songwriters being Ellie Greenwich, Jeff Barry and Phil Spector.
Oh.
And Spector used 20 top-notch musicians, all taken from the Wrecking Crew. You know about the Wrecking Crew?
I do know about the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah, they were the sort of best session musicians in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And in fact, they played on a lot of Sonny and Cher records
Yeah.
and Beach Boys, etc.
Beach Boys,
and
yeah.
loads and loads and loads of classic records.
Yeah.
And he used to use them because they were the best in town.
Yeah.
And I thought this was extraordinary, that the song cost $22,000. Which is a ton of money even now, let alone back in 1966. Yeah. And the song was a big hit here in the UK. It reached number 3.
Yeah.
But was a total flop in the States.
That's baffling. How on earth? You would imagine it would be a huge hit in the States.
Yeah. It was a flop, to say the least. And this upset Spector so much.
Yeah.
That he actually announced his retirement from producing. He sort of took the attitude as, if you don't like this, then there's nowhere I can go. I mean, this is my masterpiece.
So I've been having a little look at Tina Turner.
Oh, good.
I remember when she had What's the Hit, What's Love Got to Do with It? And I had no idea who she was. And I remember thinking, because at that time, you know, it was the mid-80s and it was lots of young pop stars. That was very much what I was listening to anyway. Stock Aitken and Waterman, all of that sort of thing. And I remember seeing the video and thinking, oh my gosh, who is this old lady?
Yeah.
Going around with a groovy haircut and a denim jacket. Who is she?
Yeah. Because of course we are that perfect age where we had missed her
first time
around,
around,
and we were actually witnessing her comeback, but we didn't realise it was a comeback.
Can you remember her real name?
Oh no, I don't.
Anna May Bullock.
Oh.
Even though Ike claims it's Martha Nell, because when they got divorced, apparently she signed everything as Martha Nell.
Martha Nell. Oh,
Yeah.
that's according to Ike.
Yeah, and Tina Turner was a stage name that Ike came up with.
Right.
And the name is one of the few things that she received in the divorce settlement.
Oh, right, okay.
How bizarre that, she received the name in the divorce settlement.
Wow, okay, yeah. So he took everything else and left her with the name.
Yeah.
Which worked out, I suppose, not too bad in the end.
Not too bad for Tina, yeah. And carrying on with the old 80s comeback.
Yeah.
Do you remember Private Dancer?
Private dancer,
a dancer for money. Do what you want me to do. That was another of her hits in the 80s. Do you know who wrote that?
Oh, right, so clearly it wasn't Tina Turner. No, I don't.
No. Mark Knopfler.
Mark Knopfler from the old
Dire
Dire Straits.
And it was originally intended as a Dire Straits record.
Wow.
Yeah. And the bass and drums are played by Dire Straits members John Illsley and Terry Williams, respectively.
Well, I never knew that.
Oh, and
Go on.
Jeff Beck plays the guitar solo on it.
Well, I'll be damned.
You're everywhere and nowhere, baby.
Is that him? Is
Of Hi Ho Silver Lining. Do you want some more quick Tina-based facts?
There's no such thing as having too much Tina Turner.
She's been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So as Ike and Tina,
Yeah.
and then Tina, presumably.
Yeah. And did you know that in 2017 she received a new kidney?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Courtesy of her husband, Erwin Bach.
Well, what a guy.
I know, isn't that that's love?
Now that's love, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what wedding anniversary it was. You know how you get metal, tin, and copper for different years. Well, maybe.
I'm going to say kidneys a long time. And another track on Private Dancer, because it was an album as well.
Yeah, was that her? That was her big comeback album, I suppose. Was it?
I think it was.
Yeah.
She covered "Let's Stay Together."
Oh, Al
well.
Green. Oh, well, that yes, okay.
Yeah.
So that ties in with the fact that Al Green released a classic album in 1972.
Oh, yes, it does. Yes.
Let's Stay Together.
Yeah, "Let's Stay Together" was produced by BEF production team.
BEF?
Yeah, do you know who they are?
No idea. Not
This
a clue.
is just gold. It was a section of the band Heaven 17.
Right.
So, yeah, Martin Ware and Ian Craig Marsh, they produced it. They play on the track and Glenn Gregory sings backing vocals
You're joking.
on Tina Turner's Let's Stay Together.
How extraordinary.
Isn't that amazing? Do you remember Tina Turner famously starring in Mad Max?
Of course. Beyond the Thunderdome.
Well, funny you should say that. I would have thought it was Beyond the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
The title is Beyond Thunderdome.
Oh.
There's no the.
Well, how about that? How
There
on
you
earth did I get to the age that I am now and
Yeah.
didn't and not know that?
Yeah, and originally the film had nothing to do with Mad Max, and it was simply a Lord of the Flies type plot with a tribe of lost children.
Okay.
But George Miller, who was the director,
Yes, yeah.
suggested that Mad Max be the guy who finds them.
Oh, okay. So he
Yeah.
could then carry on the franchise of
Yeah.
Mad Max.
Talking of Mad Max,
Yes.
did you know that was obviously the breakthrough role for Mel Gibson?
Okay, yep.
But the only reason he got the part was he gave his friend a lift to the auditions
Right.
and was spotted while waiting for his mate.
Flipping heck.
His star quality was seen from afar.
So if he hadn't have been spotted then, it's perfectly likely he would never have had any kind of career.
No, although he was in The Sullivans, which was an Australian soap, wasn't
He was
it?
in The Sullivans?
I think so, yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, I think
I
he
used
was
to
in
watch that with my mum.
Yeah. Kylie Minogue had a part in The Sullivans as well.
Did she?
Yeah. Anyway, in Mad Max 2, The
Yeah.
Road Warrior,
Okay.
Mel Gibson has just 16 lines of dialogue, which is incredible. 16
Good
lines
grief.
of... Yeah, I know, 16... How on earth can you tell a story with only 16 lines of dialogue? But George Miller, the director, said of his sparse dialogue that he follows Hitchcock's approach, where he wants to make films where people don't have to read the subtitles in Japan.
Yeah, cram in the action and cut
Yeah.
down on the dialogue.
It's all about the action.
Well, I enjoyed that little tangent through Tina Turner and Mel Gibson, but I'm going to take things back to Jack Nietzsche, where we started, the guy who featured on Neil Young's Harvest. Did you know that he also plays piano on the Rolling Stones' Paint It Black?
Oh.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And referring back to our very first episode,
Yeah.
he wrote the choral arrangement for You Can't Always Get What You Want.
Hey, full circle.
Full circle, yeah, that's what he did. He also famously composed film soundtracks, and he scored a load of films, including The Exorcist. We always think of Mike Oldfield, don't we? But
I thought Mike Oldfield did that.
Yeah, he did. He with Jack Nietzsche, apparently.
Wow.
He also scored 9.5 Weeks.
Well, no one remembers the soundtrack from that, no offence. That's not what we remember from that film, is it?
That is too true. And John Carpenter's Starman, among many others.
Right.
And it turns out he composed and performed all of the music featured on my own personal favourite film of all time, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, what a talented chap.
Very talented chap. Yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975, directed by Milos Forman, starring, of course, famously Jack Nicholson as McMurphy and Louise Fletcher as Nurse Ratched.
Okay.
Now, did you know that Kirk Douglas had originally wanted to produce the film adaptation of the book, which is written by Ken Casey, you may remember, and he gave himself the leading role because he'd played the role of McMurphy in the stage version.
Oh.
And he had promised director Milos Forman that Forman, would direct it if he wanted to. So Kirk Douglas said, look, I'll send you the novel,
Yeah.
and then you can make a decision. Kirk Douglas did send the book, but it got confiscated by the Czech authorities. This was when Czechoslovakia was under communist rule, and so it was probably considered too anti-establishment, the book.
Oh.
So they confiscated it. So Milos Forman never received the book, and he thought that Kirk Douglas had essentially broken his promise. Meanwhile, Kirk Douglas thought that Milos Forman was terribly rude for not responding. And then 10 years passed before Kirk's son Michael Douglas once again contacted Milos Forman. And of course, as we all know, Milos Forman did direct the film. Michael Douglas was the co-producer of the film.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah,
that the Douglases.
Yeah, well, Michael Douglas actually was a bit of a drifter. He wasn't sure what he was going to do, and he thought he was just going to go into producing rather than acting, and then he sort of stumbled across acting. And I thought this was reasonably interesting about Milos Forman. You might disagree that he named his two sons Andy and Jim after Andy Kaufman and Jim Carey, respectively, after directing Carey in the film Man on the Moon, who played the part of Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I thought
Well, that's
so.
a good film. We like that film, don't we?
That is also another great film.
Yeah.
But back to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
The hospital where the film was set still exists. It's the Oregon State Hospital, and it's a museum. And the director of the hospital at the time, a guy by the name of Dr. Dean Brooks, played the part of Dr. Spivey in the film. I don't know if you remember the early scene where Dr. Spivey has to interview McMurphy.
I remember, yes.
And he was directed to essentially conduct the interview as he would do under normal circumstances.
You've got at least 5 arrests for assault.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that?
5 fights, huh? Rocky Marciano's got 40 and he's a millionaire.
That's true.
That is true.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Michael Douglas co-produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I did.
And so I was having a little Google of Michael Douglas.
Good idea.
Thank you. Did you know that Michael Douglas shares the same name as Michael Keaton? So Michael Keaton's real name is actually Michael Douglas.
I did not know that.
But since Michael Douglas was first to get a film credit, he got the rights to the name.
Oh, and then so
leaving...
poor old Keaton had to come up with something.
Yeah.
Oh, well, how about that? I didn't know that.
So Michael Keaton is actually Michael Douglas.
Nice fact.
And Michael Douglas is one of only 2 people to have won an Academy Award for producing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and acting
Oh.
Wall Street.
Well done, Michael Douglas.
Yeah. Do you know who the other person is?
No, I haven't got a clue.
Laurence Olivier.
Laurence Olivier.
Yeah, who produced and acted in Hamlet.
Hamlet. Oh, well, nice one, Larry.
Yeah, and in 1997, this is a nice little random bit of trivia here.
Oh, we love that.
I particularly enjoy. In 1997,
Yeah.
Michael Douglas was sued by a golf caddy after Douglas hit him in the balls with a golf ball without allegedly shouting "four." The caddy,
Yeah.
a guy called James Parker, who had one of his ball bags ruptured. He wanted...
We shouldn't laugh. That sounds horrid.
No, we shouldn't laugh, actually. I'm sure that's very painful.
Yeah.
He wanted 115 million US dollars.
He wanted how much?
Yeah, 115 million US dollars
I mean,
for a ruptured ball bag.
I sympathise with your ruptured ball bag, but I think 115 million dollars is possibly pushing it a bit.
Yeah, so the case was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount.
I bet your bottom dollar it certainly wasn't 115 million dollars.
No, there you go.
Nice facts. Right, rewinding back to Ken Casey, the writer of the novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Who didn't like the
Who didn't like the film at all, apparently. Did you know that he took part in something called Project MK Ultra, which was the code name of an illegal human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the CIA. The experiments were intended to identify drugs such as LSD, their potential in becoming used in interrogations, to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture.
That's appalling.
It's pretty bad. These experiments were conducted at the Menlo Park Veterans Hospital, where Ken Casey worked as a night aide. And ironically, Ken Casey got a bit of a taste for the LSD and enjoyed the hallucinogenic properties of it. And he threw big parties called the acid tests, where he'd get a load of his mates over, drop a load of acid, go tripping. And he had a band, he had a house band that played there, and they were called the Warlocks. Do you know who the Warlocks were?
No.
They then became the Grateful Dead.
Oh.
Yeah. And a number of notable Beat Generation movers and shakers attended these parties, including Neil Cassidy, who, of course, was the inspiration behind the character Dean Moriarty in Jack Kerouac's On the Road. Yeah. And all these groups of friends, they then became a group called the Mary Pranksters, and they would take long trips in a bus named Further.
Oh, right.
And they took loads of psychedelic drugs and unnerved the hell out of all of the conservative towns that they came across en route.
We were talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
We were.
So I did a little bit of Googling of cuckoos.
Very good.
A cuckoo, did you know, is a brood parasite.
A brood parasite.
Well, you know how they lay their eggs in another bird's nest. So their young ones get fed by the foster parent.
They are total gits.
Yeah, they are. And apparently the young cuckoo's call can be so loud and obnoxious, other birds will rock up and feed them just to shut them up. And the cuckoo is named, it's obviously onomatopoeic, isn't it? Cuckoo.
Yes, yeah.
It's named in most languages after its call, just like here.
Right.
So in France, for example, it's known as the cuckoo.
Well, can we have some accent, please?
Cuckoo. In Holland, kik-kik.
Kik-kik, yish,
Kik-kik.
yish.
And in Germany, kuk-kuk.
Oh dear. We're being quite, what's the word, reductive here, aren't we?
Well, I'm just trying to add a certain realism.
Yes.
In Russia, kukushka.
Kukushka.
Yeah.
Kakushka,
Bit like-
kakushka,
yeah.
kakushka, yeah.
And in Japan, kakko.
Kakko.
The resident African cuckoo
Yeah.
looks virtually identical to our bird, but has more orange-yellow on the beak.
Yeah.
And more amusingly, it calls poo-poo.
Oh.
The earliest recorded sighting of a cuckoo in this country.
Well-
What year would you say?
Oh, I don't know, 1750?
1953.
1953?
I know. Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
That's nuts. So people before 50
53.
wouldn't have heard the cuckoo's call.
It's the earliest recorded sighting.
Amazing.
They only spend 3 months of the year here.
Right,
So that's
okay.
probably got a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And they migrate to and from Africa.
Ah.
Yeah. I like how in Africa they're poo-poo and here they're cuckoo.
That is rather good. Okay, going back to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and more specifically Jack Nicholson, the star and Academy Award winning actor therein, I found an interesting fact about our Jack. Now, did you know that Jack Nicholson had a one-night stand with the mother of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau?
What?
Yeah, Margaret Trudeau.
Okay, let's say allegedly.
We'll say allegedly. We'll put a big fat allegedly in there.
Oh, wow.
But this is many years before Justin was born, in case you were worried.
Wouldn't that be funny if it came out in breaking news? Jack Nicholson is Justin Trudeau's father.
Yeah, alas, the dates don't add up, so I'm afraid that's never going to happen.
Okay, rewinding all the way back to the beginning, we started off with the fact that a bunch of classic albums celebrate their 50th anniversary this year, 2022.
Yeah.
One of which is Al Green's Let's Stay Together.
Classic.
Little bit of trivia about Al Green for you.
Go on.
It's not the happiest of stories.
Oh dear, okay.
But it's nice to have light and shade.
Okay, I will prepare myself.
Troubles struck the popular crooner in 1974 when his girlfriend, Mary Woodson White, became enraged that the singer wouldn't marry her. She threw a pot of hot grits, which is essentially porridge, isn't it?
Oh, okay. I'll take your word for it, yeah.
On Green as he was bathing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she then found his pistol and committed suicide.
Oh, man. That is bleak.
Yeah. The incident caused Green to return to his roots, rediscover his faith, and become ordained as a minister at the Full Gospel Tabernacle Church in Memphis, Tennessee.
Ah, hence the Reverend Al Green.
And he still preaches there to this day.
To this very day?
Yeah.
How about that?
And another of the albums that celebrates its 50th birthday is Bill Withers' Still Bill.
Classic.
Did you know that Bill Withers enlisted with the US Navy at the age of 17 and had a 9-year career there before leaving to pursue a career in music?
Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah, and during this time in the Navy, he had speech therapy to cure a stutter.
Oh.
Yeah. He then went on to work as an assembly worker on production lines for a few companies, including Ford Motors and IBM.
Okay.
And when he released the single Ain't No Sunshine in 1971...
Yeah.
He kept his day job for fear his music career would be short-lived.
Well, flipping heck.
And of course, you probably know that with Lovely Day, he set the record for the longest sustained note on a chart hit on American charts, holding a high E. How many seconds would you guess?
18.
You got it, Daddy-O. 18 seconds.
18 seconds.
Shall we try? A lovely day.
9 seconds. Okay, so half of what our man achieved. Right.
Your turn.
Here we go. You ready? A lovely day.
What?
30 seconds, how about that? Why?
What?
Why?
Have you got gills? We found your talent.
Well, finally, 51 years on this planet, we finally found a talent.
Thank you for listening to When One Thing Leads to Another, a podcast produced and presented by us, Helen and Bill Rich.
If you've enjoyed this episode, then please rate and review us on wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe, and that way you'll never miss an episode.
We'd also love to hear from you, especially if we've got any of our information wrong, or you have some more fascinating facts about something we've talked about, or you could even suggest a subject for our starting point.
Our email address is whenonethingleadstoanother@gmail.com.
A massive thank you to Justin Mitchell for letting us use his music as our theme song. It's a track called Homo Erectus, taken from his fantastical album called The Garden of Earthly Delights, which is available to buy from bandcamp.com.
Thanks also to Acast for hosting us.
Join us next week for another episode of When One Thing Leads to Another.
Please note that all facts have been found on the internet and therefore we cannot vouch for their veracity.